Everything about this just gave me the ick, and I just really wish I hadn't read it, but here we are. Oh my god, I'm so excited for this. I have no explanation for this. It's okay. Own your sexuality. I love it. Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel. This story ain't over. Today's video is one that I'm super excited for. It is yet another reading experiment video. I know you guys love watching these and I love making them. And I thought with February here, with Valentine's Day on the horizon, at least for me when I'm filming this, I thought it'd be a great idea to read some popular BookTok romances. So I am on TikTok all the time. I am constantly watching videos on there to the detriment of my mental health. But I absolutely love getting good recommendations from BookTok, and sometimes they are hits and sometimes they are misses, but I have not really delved into the romance books that are often recommended on TikTok. But I thought I would delve a little bit deeper, look at some books that I've had on my TBR for a while, ones that have been talked about in the past couple of years, and I thought I would see if I would enjoy any of these romances. Some of these may not seem popular to you based on your algorithm, but these are the ones that have popped up a lot for me on my algorithm, and honestly, I'm excited to try them out. I will preface this entire video by saying that if you are a regular viewer of my channel, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I don't actually read all that much romance. It's not a genre that I typically gravitate towards. I usually pick up one here and there when I need a pick-me-up, but other than that, it's not my usual genre that I pick up, mainly because I tend to pick up like sci-fi fantasy or lots of literary fiction, like contemporary fiction, that handles a lot of other issues to it. And I'm personally a glutton for punishment, so I love books that just make me sad and cry, and honestly, it's a vibe. But sometimes I do want joy in life and I do want to be a little bit happier. And sometimes I do want to see what's so green about the grass on the other side. So today we're going to be reading popular BookTok romance books. So first up, I'll be reading The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This is a book that's been on my TBR for ages. I've owned this book for quite a few years now. And I've definitely seen Christina Lauren's books all over BookTok, specifically this one and a couple other ones. This one I know for its pretty interesting premise. Basically, at the beginning of the book, there's a wedding happening and the bride and groom get food poisoning and they're no longer able to attend their like really amazing honeymoon that they won a contest for, and so it's like really strict rules, so only they can go. But the bride happens to have a twin sister who looks exactly like her, and then the groom has a brother who looks pretty similar to him as well, has the same last name, that kind of thing. So our main characters are Olive, the sister, and Ethan, the brother, and these two actually have hated each other for years, ever since their siblings started dating each other. But when this opportunity sort of comes up to potentially go on this honeymoon and not waste the vacation, they decide to go for it. Olive is the type of character who has always believed she's been down on her luck, and her sister has always been someone who is very lucky, and so she's taking this moment to like reorient her life, even if that means going on a super romantic vacation with her arch nemesis. This is definitely a hate to love, enemies to lovers situation. It's not my favorite trope, to be honest, going into a contemporary romance. I personally only really like enemies to lovers in really high stress fantasy sci-fi situations where they're like actually enemies, you know, Zuko and Katara level enemies. But regardless, I'm gonna give it a chance and see how this goes. The second book I'll be reading for this video is Dating Dr. Dil by Nisha Sharma. I've heard of this author's other YA books, never actually picked them up, but I've been seeing this book all over BookTok and literally everywhere. It was also nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award in 2022. And basically it follows our very strong and independent main character, Karina Man, who has always dreamed of having a love story like her parents, but she lost her mother quite a few years ago and she's been sort of holding on to that grief and also holding on to their childhood home. But when her father announces that he's going to retire and sell the house, Karina decides to make up this crazy deal with him where if she can get engaged in 4 months, he'll give her the money to buy back the house from him and keep her childhood home. But of course, how is she gonna find a man in less than 4 months to get engaged to? But in the midst of this, she ends up in this crazy situation where she argues with the host of this like medical show for South Asians called the Dr. Dil Show, which is hosted by Dr. Prem Verma. So she ends up in this argument with him, it goes viral, and people are just so invested in their lives and what's going on between them. And of course, when this happens, her meddling aunties see this as an opportunity and are trying to set up her and Prem and his own sort of reasons for maybe wanting to be with Karina. Based off the impressions that I've been getting off of TikTok, it seems like this one has a lot of spicy scenes and it's like pretty focused on that. So I'm not sure how much I'm gonna love this one. Again, this is another like enemies to lovers, hate to love situation, which again, not my super favorite in contemporary fiction. I just feel like the trope is very often overdone and also not done in a convincing way where you actually think they're enemies. They are often just like misunderstanding each other and then they grow to love each other, which is fine. It's just funny that it's a trope that comes up so often. On a completely different note, next up I'll be reading Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is one that I've seen all over BookTok, but also Bookstagram, and I've seen quite a few romance booktubers talk about this one. And this one is definitely more of a somber book. It involves a romance between a couple that was divorced and they had experienced some grief and loss. Don't know too much about the plot other than that it is a black main couple and they're like co-parenting their kids, I think. And overall, I'm just interested to see how this one goes. I'm curious to see if this one's like gonna be heavy on the spicy stuff or not, or if it's gonna be more heavy on the emotional stuff. I have heard a lot of people say that this one can get pretty sad, so I'm intrigued. I feel like this one could definitely break me and I'm here for it. Next up, I'll be reading Funny You Should Ask by Elisa Sussman. And basically what I know about this one is that it follows our main character who is a writer and also I think a journalist of some kind. And one day she gets this crazy opportunity to interview the celebrity crush of her dreams, this movie star named Gabe. And something happens after this interview and it seems like they get romantically involved. But then the book also flashes forward to now, the current timeline, which is 10 years later. And a lot of things have happened in both their lives and they are thrust back together when they're encouraged to do yet another interview together again. Honestly, don't know too much about this one, but it seems like it could be a really cute, like second chance romance, which is kind of one of my favorite types of romances. Before I Let Go is also a second chance romance. So I have more faith that I'll probably like these two. And another thing that has me excited about this book is that I saw quite a few people on BookTok compare this book to that viral video of Andrew Garfield on the red carpet with the chicken shop girl. I think she does like interviews for like YouTube with like different celebrities. Don't know too much about her, but the chemistry between her and Andrew Garfield while on that red carpet, while she was interviewing him, was just off the charts. And honestly, I've watched that video so many times and it was so freaking cute. So anything that gives me the same vibes as that, I'm here for it. So excited to check this one out and see what I think of it. Like I said, I haven't read a lot of romance in a while, so I'm excited to dive back into the genre and also potentially discover some new favorites. So let's get into the vlog. Hello, this is editing Jananie from the future at the end of this vlog, coming to you to tell you that there are major spoilers in this vlog, so bear that in mind and do not go forward in this vlog if you don't want to be spoiled about any of these books. The one that I spoiled the most is Funny You Should Ask, which is the last book in this video, but I do talk about some situations in the other books kind of vaguely. You won't be completely spoiled for those ones, but I would just keep that in mind. So if you're someone who doesn't mind a few small spoilers, then you can keep watching, but if you don't like any spoilers, then stop, go read these books, and come back. Alrighty, so before we get into the vlog and before I tell you about my thoughts on the Unhoneymooners, I did want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, which is FabFitFun. So you've probably heard of FabFitFun before. It's a customizable seasonal box with full-size beauty, fashion, fitness, and home products. Now, longtime viewers of my channel will know that I've done quite a few unboxings before, but one of my issues with unboxings and like box subscriptions is that oftentimes you can't choose what goes in the boxes. But FabFitFun works completely differently. It is a completely customizable box, so you get to choose what products you want to get in your box so that it suits your lifestyle. Now with the new year, I know a lot of us are probably thinking about our finances and how we can afford all the necessities in life with inflation and a recession and everything going on. So I think FabFitFun is a really great solve for that type of situation where you can get a seasonal surprise that is mainly customized by you of things that you want. And it's for an affordable price that will not break the bank, but also get you some really quality products. Now, before I unbox my FabFitFun, I did want to tell you about the exclusive deal that I have for all of you. So if you use my code STORY, you can actually get 20% off your first FabFitFun box. So that'll be a value of up to $300, which you can get as low as $47.99 with my code STORY. Okay. Oh my god, I'm so excited for this. So the first thing in here is this Cryo Ice Sake roller, and it's just like a roller that helps you like deep puff your face. I've always wanted one of these, but I could like never justify getting one, but now I have one. Next up I have the Flash Nap by Fenty Skin. I've been eyeing this for the longest time. So it's like a little cream, I think, that you put under your eye or like around your eye area. And then it comes with like a roller massage tool that you can use under your eye, which is honestly something I need because I'm always chronically tired tired and have so many eye bags. Okay, next up is a hair product, which I'm really excited about. So this is the Amika Dream Routine Overnight Hydration Treatment. I am always about taking care of my curls because they are precious to me. So definitely gonna be using this. I've used Amika products before as well, so I'm excited to try this one out. Okay, the next thing is one that I'm super excited for because honestly, last month I was eyeing these online and I was like, should I buy them? Should I not? But then I don't have enough to like get free shipping and I was like, okay, maybe it's not worth it. So that product is the Glamnetic Reusable Press-On Nails, and these are the ones in Creamer, which is like just this really nice nude color, which I love. Okay, the next thing is something that I've been wanting for a while, and that's a spa headband from Zoe Isla. Oh my god, and it's purple. I didn't know that. Okay, and then the final thing that I got in my FabFitFun box is a lounge set, which I am so excited to have. I have a full-time job, so I work from home, and then I also do my YouTube work at home. Like I do a lot of my filming and stuff. So I'm constantly like at home. Oh my god, and this is so freaking soft. Okay, so this is the top. And then we've got the shorts as well. And I can definitely use this for like sleep as well as like pajamas. So very versatile and cannot wait to use them. Okay, and with that, that's all the products in my FabFitFun box. So many great things in here, and that's 6 different items for one box cost. I also actually just searched it up, but the Fenty Skin Flash Nap, which I had been eyeing for ages and which I couldn't justify getting, it's actually $54 on Sephora Canada, which is insane for this one product, which is like this tiny little tube of product. And with FabFitFun and my code STORY, you could literally get a whole box of products for the cost of just that one product. It's honestly so crazy how affordable it is, so definitely go check out FabFitFun. Use my code STORY and the link down below to get 20% off your first box, which is up to $300 value for only $47.99. Thank you so much to FabFitFun for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back into the vlog and my thoughts on the Unhoneymooners, which also features a character who is very big on saving money. So last night I started the first book for this video, which is The Unhoneymooners by Christina. I am currently about, I think, almost 300 pages into the book. I have like only 100 pages left. I'm listening on the audiobook, so I'm a little bit further than where my bookmark is, but it's going good so far. I definitely don't think this one's gonna be a favorite for me, especially among the list of other books on this list, but who knows. So for context, I actually started this book, I think last year or the year before. I had been like reading the ebook on my phone or something from Scribd, and I got really into it, and then I was like, oh, let me buy the book, and I bought the book, and then I never ended up actually continuing the book, and I had only gotten, I think, about 50 to 60 pages in, so not far. So when I started it again for this vlog, I started from the beginning and I actually just put on the audiobook, and I really like the audiobook. I do think that the narrator is really good at capturing the main character's voice and her vibe, but I do think that the narration style and like the faux masculine voice that she puts on for Ethan, the male love interest, is kind of awkward and cringy, but it sort of works for how I mentally envision him as a person, because TBH, guys, I don't love Ethan in this book. He's definitely not like the love interest that I personally enjoy. He seems very much like a bro at times. He's not like the nicest person, and I get that there's supposed to be like this hate to love romance. In terms of love interests that I've seen, he's definitely on the lower end. But one thing I am liking is the banter between the characters and sort of the way that they are so comfortable with each other because they've spent so much time together, but also like hating each other. And so it's just interesting to see how that dynamic translates into their romantic relationship and how they already feel super comfortable with each other. And this book has like a lot of just like ridiculous things that happen while they're on the vacation. You know, they run into different people where they have to like fake that they're actually married throughout. So the book overall is just very entertaining, and it feels kind of like one of those romantic comedies that's like heavier on the comedy side, I would say, but there are romantic moments going on in this. I definitely think that this one doesn't make me swoon as much as some of the other romances I've read before, and I think part of that just has to do with the fact that like I'm not as into the love interest in this one. One thing I am not loving, and I don't remember when this book came out, but it feels like it came out like quite a while ago. Like it feels older than some of the romances that I've read, in just like the mindset that the characters are having, because the main character definitely subscribes to this idea of like not really loving herself and also like not realizing that she's hot even though she is hot, and like I just like don't love that in books anymore. I think like when I was younger, like, you know, the girl didn't realize she was pretty thing was like kind of cute. Back then it was like the thing, and like everyone felt like that, and you know, you just wanted to pretend that someone would recognize your like inner beauty. But I feel like now I'm like, nah, like girl, you know you're pretty, like own it, live it, be it. And another thing is like she just gets super surprised when like the male love interest Ethan like says she's hot at one point, and I'm like, no, like you know you're hot. Don't pretend. I mean, maybe she doesn't, but I just don't love the fact that she doesn't, and it's bothering me. I don't know. So yeah, this is definitely not the dynamic that I'm loving. This is definitely feeling a little bit more mediocre to me, but it is entertaining. So I'm enjoying that aspect. Like it's fun. It's a pretty quick and fast read. I am like, you know, 300 pages in, but I'm gonna say like these pages have very little words on them. Like all the lines are very much spaced out. So I definitely feel like although this is a 400 page book, it probably is closer to like a 300 page book, I would say, or less. It's going very quickly, and like even the audiobook was quite short. I just remember there's also one more thing that I'm not loving about this book, which we'll see how this plays out at the end of the book, and which is part of what I'm interested to see, like how the book ends. So there's like this plot line of the main characters knowing about certain people potentially cheating, and there's this discussion of should they tell the people or not. But just seeing how Ethan is reacting to the situation, and then how Olive is like sort of reacting to the situation based off of how Ethan is, I am just not in love with this vibe. I don't know, I am not loving that whole plot line, but I do think it's adding some extra aspect to the book, because right now where I'm at, like the characters have returned from their vacation, which I didn't expect to happen so early in the book. I thought the entire book was going to be them on vacation and then like coming home and being in love kind of thing, but it's turning out a little bit differently. So I'm interested to see how like the last act of the book is going to go, but already like I'm just not loving these two main characters as people all that much. But regardless, like it's not a terrible book. I do think it's not one of the best romances I've read. I do think it's also not one of Christina Lauren's best works as well, because I've heard a lot of people say they love Christina Lauren books, and I've heard one of my friends, Azanta, really loved The Soulmate Equation, which I also own. So maybe at some point I'll read some of their other books, but so far this one is not quite top tier for me, but that's fine. Hello friends, it's a little bit later. I am just about to finish my lunch break, and I actually managed to listen to the end of the Unhoneymooners while I was doing a bit of work, and then also during my lunch break while I was eating, and I am done. And honestly, like I feel kind of the same about the book since my last update. I do feel firmly that like I didn't really like the male love interest all that much. I do like the character development that we get with the main character Olive, and I like the relationship with her sister and how that develops, but I just really did not appreciate the way that Ethan acts towards the end of the book and like throughout the middle of the book as well. Like I just don't love seeing that in romance books, I guess. I have higher standards when it comes to real life, so yeah, was not impressed with that. One thing I will say is that I really love how the main character Olive just sticks to her guns throughout the ending of the book. She's going through this moment where like some people don't believe her, and you know, they are doubting her motives, and I appreciated that she sticks to her guns and she knows that she's changed, and she is trying to just do the best for everyone around her, even if they don't believe her. So yeah, this one definitely wasn't a favorite for me. It didn't blow me away or anything. While it did get me into like that mood of thinking about romantic things, it didn't really get me into that romantic mood, and it doesn't really have any spicy scenes to it either, I would say. It's all very fade to black, so if you are someone who is looking for like a romance book that is mostly fade to black, this is a pretty good one. But yeah, overall not too many strong feelings about this one, so this experiment is going still pretty well. It's not going great, but it's not going badly either, so I'm happy with that. Okay, the lighting is terrible, but I'm over it. If you hear noise in the background, that's my parents watching TV, but I am like, let me see. I'm 100 pages into Dating Dr. Dill, and guys, I love this so much. Okay, I'll be the first to say that I was not expecting this to be that good. I heard it really hyped up on BookTok and like literally everywhere, and I'd seen some mixed opinions about it, but like saw it hyped up. And I was most excited about it because it was like South Asian leads and by South Asian authors, so I was like, yes. But even then I was like, you know, it takes a lot for me to like a romance book, so we'll see. Guys, every everything about this book I am just loving right now. I love the dynamic between the main characters, even though like so let me get this straight. Like this book is over the top and like there's aspects of it that I'm like, okay, you are acting ridiculous, but I'm like, I don't care because this is hilarious and so much fun. It is both like really swoon worthy, but also super, super hilarious. And I think one aspect of that is just like the South Asian background coming into it and how the aunties come into play into the overall scheme of everything and how things are working, and I'm loving it so freaking much. I love the banter between the characters, especially when they're arguing. It's so much fun. And I also just love the conversations that they're having with like other people. Like I think overall I'm loving the dialogue in the whole book and between all the characters. I'm like only 100 pages in, but I've already put in so many little tabs for like different lines that I like or moments that I like or just hilarious things, and it's just giving me life. Like I love this so much. After how slightly disappointing the Unhoneymooners was, this was like definitely a treat, and I wasn't expecting to just get sucked into it for like the 2 hours that I was reading. I'm so excited to finish this. I'm about to head out for the gym. I usually go like late at night when the gym is not packed at all. The psychotic part of my brain just wants to like stay up all night and finish this, but you know, that would be bad and I need to wake up early tomorrow. I feel like this one could be like boom, smash, amazing. It's just like giving me so much life also because the two main characters are South Asian, so it's just like so exciting. Like it just feels so awesome. It just makes everything fuzzy and warm inside, and I just love it. And I just love how many aspects of the book are so relatable, like even in a very universal sense, not even just like the South Asian aspects, but like overall just very relatable. And yeah, I'm just kind of loving the ridiculousness of this. Like it's both swoony and hilarious, and I think that's like my perfect mix for an entertaining romance, like one that I'm not gonna get so seriously involved with, but one that is just like entertaining and fun and just makes me happy. Like this is it. Hello friends, it's a new day, it's Wednesday. I'm currently on my lunch break right now during work, so I thought I would update you on dating Dr. Dill. As I said last night, this is going great. I am about 100 pages further. I listened to more of the book last night after the gym, and then I also listened to more of it this morning while I was doing my makeup. I have reached the part of the book where like more of the spicy things are happening. Like we've had at least 2 major spicy scenes, but also some really great character interactions between like the main couple that I'm just in love with. And the first like third of the book I really enjoyed, like all the family dynamics and the aunties and like the hilarity of it, but this section of the book I'm just really enjoying the chemistry between the characters and just the vibe and just the way this is going. Like I am loving the spicy bits. One of them actually happened while we were on the perspective chapter of Prem, who's a male love interest, and so obviously the audiobook was narrated by a lovely male narrator, and he was fantastic and he did a really great job. Honestly, this book took me by surprise, so I'm just like astounded. One thing that was going through my mind while reading all of the spicy scenes, I was like, oh my god, there's probably some Indian auntie who picked this up and it's getting totally scandalized, but like I'm here for it, so yeah. Or there's like some like brown kid out there who is reading this book and then their mom is finding it in their room and like flipping through and finding these spicy things and they're getting in a lot of trouble. So yeah, I'm scared for the brown kids out there, but it's okay. Own your sexuality. I love it. I feel like I've set the bar really high by reading this as the second book in this video because I don't know how anything's gonna compare to this. Like there's a lot of romance books that I really enjoy, but this one's just like hitting things that I never knew I needed in a romance book, and I'm living for it. So here we are. I was scrolling on TikTok just before like filming this clip, and I saw a few TikToks about this book, and like I've seen this book all over TikTok before, but a few more came up, and one of them mentioned this thing called the Charlie thing, and I don't know what this is referring to because I am assuming it refers to something that happens in this book, either a character or something sex related, I think. So I'm really curious now because people were saying that they took a whole star off for the Charlie thing, and I'm like, what could it be? Guys, I just figured out the Charlie thing. I have no explanation for this. And it's funny because I heard it before in the audiobook, but I guess I wasn't paying attention, but that was a choice. That was a choice. It's fine. Yeah. Hello friends, it's a new day. It's Thursday, February 9th. It's about 8 a.m. right now, so it's before I'm about to start work. And I thought I would update you on Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. I finished this one this morning while doing my makeup. I was listening to the audiobook and I had like, I think a little bit less than an hour left of the audiobook. I tried to finish it last night when I got home from my boyfriend's house, but then I was like really tired and I just kept falling asleep. So I left it to this morning and it was fantastic. It definitely like got a little bit crazy at the end, but I loved it and I loved the character growth for everyone. And honestly, it was just like a really nice time. Obviously, it was like frustrating the way that Prem was acting at certain parts of the book and the way that he wouldn't admit his feelings, but I think like it's a rom-com, what do you expect? So I really enjoyed it. I loved all the family aspects. I loved their chemistry. I loved the spicy bits. Like there's just so much about this that really worked for me, like I've been saying in previous clips. And overall, this was just like a really great read. I don't think it's like my favorite of all time in terms of romances, but it was really fun and I really enjoyed it. So I think it's a solid like 4 stars, 4.5 for me. One thing I didn't particularly love though was the sister relationship in this one. I feel like it could have been done better, or I just wanted more out of it. As someone with sisters, I really love and appreciate sister stories in books that really show the characters coming to understand each other, because I feel like sister relationships are complicated and like you can often misunderstand each other. So I love it when they come to like a good resolution. This one I didn't feel like gave me that, which like wasn't really the main focus, but I still wish that like subplot had been done a little bit better. As you saw in my previous clip, I figured out the Charlie thing and that was actually so funny because it just like completely went over my head initially, and like I don't know why I didn't notice it, but once I started noticing it, I was like, oh my god, I can't stop noticing this. But I don't think it bothered me as much as a lot of other people on TikTok, so I did not have to take off a star for that. But in general, I really enjoyed this one, and I just loved like the elements of grief as well that play into the story. I feel so bad for judging this one so hard. For some reason, I thought it was gonna be like all sex and nothing else. I don't know why, but I think it's because of the way it was sort of talked about on TikTok, but it really wasn't. It had so many other aspects to it, which I really loved. Overall, really enjoyed this one. Highly recommend. I am curious to see what I'm gonna think of the other books on this list. I feel like we've gotten a pretty good range in books, from Unhoneymooners to Dating Dr. Dill. Next up, I'm gonna be reading Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I do believe that this one is more on the sadder side based on the description, and it talks a lot about like healing and stuff. So we'll see how that goes, because I feel like I haven't read a romance like that in a very long time. I don't even know if it has a happy ending or not, so we'll see. But yeah, I feel like the last 2 books were very like happy-go-lucky, very chill, so this one's probably gonna hit me a little harder, so we'll see how that goes, but I'm excited to read it. Hello friends, it's a new day. It is Friday at last. It's Friday, February 10th, and it's just after lunch right now. I just finished my lunch break and I was bad, and I did not read during my lunch break, but I did start watching the new season of You on Netflix, which I'm loving already. But I did listen to Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan a little bit last night, and then also this morning while I was doing my makeup before work, and it is going fantastic. I'm already in love with this book, and I'm already in love with the characters. This is definitely a slower paced book than the other 2 books that I read for this video. It's definitely more focused on the characters themselves and their individual journeys, and also the other stuff that they have going on. There are huge themes of grief in this book, and family, and you know, divorce, and so many other things going on that I think really add to the story overall. But I'm very early in the book. I'm not even 100 pages in. I think I'm like 60 pages in. So this is very initial thoughts. I definitely meant to read more of this last night, but I ended up getting caught up with some other work, and then I was just really exhausted after that, so I ended up taking a little bit of a break. But today I have a live show with my channel members who I absolutely adore, and I love reading with them on the live shows that we do. So I have one tonight at like 6:30, so I'm just gonna be setting aside some dedicated time during that live show to read, because we do reading sprints and then we chit chat in between. So I'm really excited for that, and I'll probably be getting a big dent made in this book. But yeah, overall, just like initial thoughts, I'm just really enjoying it, and I can already sense that this is a book that's gonna make me cry by the end, and I'm like literally so excited for it. And I honestly don't know if this is gonna be a happily ever after in the end, like if they're gonna be together in the end or not. I know there should be some more rekindling of this relationship at some point in the book, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So I'm still very early on. We're still setting the stage, but I'm already loving the side characters. Like I love the kids and their different personalities and like what's going on with them. And I also love Yasmin's friends in the book. So Soledad and Hendrix. They are just so amazing. They are always hyping her up. They are so supportive and they're just wonderful sounding people. And I'm like, I want these friends in real life. I just love the beautiful like love that's going on in this book. And I also just appreciate how supportive Yasmin and Josiah are being, irregardless of their relationship status. Like even when they're jealous of each other or like whatever else, they're still very supportive of each other when it comes to talking to their children. Like there's moments when Josiah doesn't really agree with Yasmin, but he still defends her to their children and tries to get their children to understand her better, and I appreciate that a lot. So yeah, there's just a lot of things that I'm loving, and I just can't wait to see how this goes. Like there's so many layers to this that I just love. I feel like this is gonna be a new favorite for me, but we'll hold out and see until we get a little bit further, but I'm excited for it. I am much further into the book now. I am on chapter 26 and I'm about like 230 pages in, so I only have like this much left. I've been listening to a lot of the audiobook. I did mean to get further into the book yesterday night, but I was just kind of exhausted last night. I did get like at least 2 solid hours of reading though during my channel members live show, which was really great, but afterwards I was just exhausted and basically passed out. But this morning I listened to more of the book while doing my makeup and got some solid reading in, and it's going so great. I honestly love this book so much already, and I love the slow buildup of the rekindling of their romance. Again, I'm still not sure if this book is gonna have a happy ending and if they're gonna end up together. My gut is saying probably not, but my heart really wants them to because I love them together. I think I mentioned this before, but I just really love like the care and consideration they have between each other and the way that they defend each other and the way that they care for their kids and support each other. And I honestly just really love the way that the book takes a very open approach to mental health and talks about therapy and, you know, the difficulty for men to like open up to therapy and like feel vulnerable. I really love that. And honestly, I just love the chemistry between the characters. They are like magnets and like you can't keep them apart, and it's just so interesting to watch and like read, and I am just like breathless, and they've literally done nothing. Where I am in the book right now, we're definitely reaching a point where something's gonna happen. I can sense it on the horizon, so I'm just like waiting for that moment, but I'm also like scared of what it's gonna bring, so we'll see. I'm also really loving a lot of the side characters. Like I said, we've got Yasmin's mother who comes in later in the book, which I'm just loving. She's fantastic and I love the way that she meddles. And I'm also really enjoying the like subplots of what's going on with the kids and their relationships with their parents and how those are going through their own developments as well throughout the book. So overall, this book is just stunning so far, and I'm just really scared to see where it ends because yeah, if they don't end up together in the end, I'm gonna be like really, really sad, but I have hope. I don't want to jinx it, but I do feel like at this point, this could be like a new favorite for me. Like I can see it on my top 10 list, or at least my honorable mentions for the end of the year, because it's just so beautiful and heartbreaking and has so much depth to it and so many layers to it, and I'm just in love. Hello friends, it is a whole ass week later. It is currently Sunday, February 19th. Basically the week got away from me. I had a pretty terrible week in terms of some health issues going on, some anxiety going on, and this is why I sometimes hate vlogging, because I just can't bring myself to vlog sometimes. But I do try to remember that I can just like take a break and get back into it, so that's what I did. So yeah, I just wasn't feeling up to a lot of things over the past week, but one good thing to come out of this is that I did finish Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, and guys, I love this book so, so much. This book was just so freaking good, and I'm so glad I picked it up. This is definitely a 5-star read for me, and I might even say this is like a new all-time favorite. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be on my top 10 books of 2023 list at the end of this year, and I just am in love with everything that the author did with this book. The romance, the characters, the discussions of mental health, of grief, everything about this was just so beautifully told and well done, and it just had my heart breaking by the end. I was in tears by the end. Like, I just felt so much for these characters, and I think this type of romance book is honestly what I love the most. It's that slight cross between a romance book but also a contemporary fiction, literary fiction. It brings in a lot of other elements to the characters' lives beyond just the romance. And that's not to say I think that romances that are just focused on the romance are like subpar or not worth it. I absolutely love those books as well, but I think personally for me, I love books that bring in other elements. I definitely think that romance books that just focus on the romance and no other like hard issues or anything like that are really fun and really needed and necessary for a lot of people, me included, when I need a pick-me-up. But I think these types of books, ones like this, that touch so many topics and really delve into the 3D lives of these characters are the ones that hit me the hardest and are the ones that become all-time favorites for me. I know a lot of people will disagree with me in that sense, and I'm definitely the type of reader I have realized that tends to read on the sadder, darker side, because I think there's just something so amazing about confronting very difficult things in a fictional format and processing that. I think in most cases my favorites are made up of books that made me sad, the ones that made me cry, the ones that made me think deeper about these characters and about life in general. And that's not to say that this book doesn't have happy moments, but I do think that it hits you with some very deep things that will just get you thinking, and I just loved it so freaking much. I could go on and on about this book. I'm gonna wax poetic because I love it so much, and I think everyone should be reading it. So if there's a book that you're picking up on this list of books I have talked about in this video, please pick up this one because it's fucking fantastic and you will not regret it. I know it might be difficult for some of you, and obviously search up the content warnings if you're picking up this one, but I do think it's such a valuable read and you will walk away a better person for it. Now, with that said, you can probably tell that it would be very hard for me to follow up with another book that I'm gonna love just as much as Before I Let Go, which is why it took me a little bit to get into the next book that I'm reading for this video, which is Funny You Should Ask. I don't have a physical copy of this book, so I am listening to the audiobook on Kobo, and then I borrowed the ebook from the library in case I wanted to follow along while I was reading. But for the most part, I've been listening to the audiobook, and I've been listening to it on and off just because I've had trouble focusing over the last week, and just because it's been quite hard to get into it after how magnificent Before I Let Go was. I think I'm about a third of the way in. I've just got to the part where it's starting to get a little bit more interesting and a little bit more juicy, and so far I'm intrigued. It is an interesting and strange situation, but I do think that the writing style is a little bit confusing, especially when you are reading through the audiobook. The timeline of the book sort of flip-flops between now and then, and chapters that were 10 years ago and chapters that are in our current day. And then there are also chapters that come in between that are from different articles or like blogs or books and that kind of thing that have to do with the main couple in the book. And it's all a really interesting situation, and like there's a bit of like mystery to, you know, what actually happened, but I don't think it's delivering exactly the way that I was hoping for. I think in these situations, these second chance romances that like happen many years later and where there's like this idea of like, you know, what happened back then, why did everything fall apart, I always expect more angst, I think, and I'm just not getting the level of angst that I want from this book. Again, I am a reader who just loves sad things, so like, please don't judge me for this, but I do think there's just like so much I don't know yet, so it's not yet hitting the way I want. So yeah, I think I just need to get further into the book and then I'll probably enjoy it more. Hello friends, it's a new day. It's Tuesday, February 21st. It's been a few days, I think, since I updated you, and I am almost done with Funny You Should Ask by Elisa Sussman. I have about 3 hours left of the audiobook, and I'm currently listening to it on double speed, so I should be able to finish it in an hour and a half. My feelings on this one haven't changed much since my last update. I still don't feel like it's hitting the way I want it to. I kind of had high-ish expectations for this one based off of the way that people were talking about it. I can see how someone might enjoy it, but I think it's not as well done as I was hoping it would be. And I don't know if it's the audiobook, maybe if I was like reading it, I would like it a little bit better. I feel like none of the moments between the main couple are really gripping me. There was maybe one that came up recently in the book, and it was sort of a flashback scene to a moment a few years ago in that 10-year gap between the two interviews that they did, and that was like a really nice angsty moment. But I feel like what's getting to me is that the original setup of these characters and like the original time that they met in the then chapters are not doing it for me. Like, I don't see where the attraction is coming from. I'm not seeing what it is about the other person that the characters like, and I don't know, something about it just seems kind of insta-lovey, and can't pinpoint what like this 10 years of angst and like, you know, feelings between these characters is actually even based off of. Another part of this is that it is a celebrity romance, so there's an aspect of it that is kind of ridiculous and kind of out there and doesn't really seem believable. I just wish there had been more interaction between the characters in the then chapters, and more for the romance to be actually built off of, because aside from like a few conversations, I don't really get the sense that they are getting to deeply know each other. I think a book that does this really well is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I love this book so much, and it does the whole like we met when we were young and then we meet again many years later and it's a second chance at this romance, and it does it so well, and like you can sense the love between the characters even in the like then chapters, in the flashbacks, and then you also feel it in the later ones too. So it makes a little bit more sense. Whereas this one I feel like, okay, but like you met for like maybe 2-3 days 10 years ago, and that's what you're basing this entire like emotional journey over? I don't know. I just feel like it could never be me, you know? So I have an hour and a half left of the audiobook. We'll see how it goes. Maybe they'll reveal something more, but I feel like if they are gonna reveal something more about the then chapters this late in the book, then I feel like that just makes zero sense, and it should have been revealed earlier in the book so that we could actually be invested in the characters. So yeah, overall not super impressed with this one, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so it's a few days later and I finally finished Funny You Should Ask by Elisa Sussman, and guys, this one was a huge letdown and total disappointment. There was one point towards the end of the book where I was just like, why? Why am I reading this? Why did anyone say this was great? And I wanted to understand it a little bit more. And honestly, like the more I kept thinking about the book, the more I was like, this is awful, and I also hate these characters. But of course I wanted to give the people who love this book the benefit of the doubt. So I understand to a certain extent like why people like this book and why it was popular on TikTok, but personally for me, it just like was not it for me at all. I went and read some Goodreads reviews of this book, and a few people mentioned how like they didn't really feel like this was a romance book. It was more of like a women's fiction book, and it was more focused on the main character's journey and that kind of thing. And to a certain extent, like I agree with that, but to another extent, I don't really. I do feel like it was focused on this relationship, and like that's what her entire life revolves around. And I just don't feel like we saw enough of the rest of her life to warrant this being like a women's fiction or like a book about her journey. The more I thought about Honey as a character, I just felt like she was really flat and didn't have much substance to her. And a lot of her actions, as I started to think about them in hindsight, felt really gross and really creepy. Like the fact that in the then chapters when she would consistently see Gabe like pick up a drink or whatever else, and she would be like, oh, I probably shouldn't write about this because he's like kind of drunk or whatever, but you know, I'm gonna do it anyways. Like the fact that that kept happening so many times, like she knew she was taking advantage of the fact that he was often drunk and like an alcoholic at this point, and you know, was still choosing to write about all this stuff. And there's even this moment later in the book where Gabe even points this out to her, the fact that he didn't think she would write about like the last 2 days of the weekend because he felt like they were more personal things, but she still chose to write about them anyway. And I know people will be like, well, she didn't know if he liked her or if he just wanted her there for the interview, and so she thought it was like the interview because she was feeling bad about herself and all of that. But like to me, that is like a side point. The morality of all of this just felt so wrong to me. And also not to mention like deeply unprofessional as well. I get that she wanted to hang out with him afterwards and that he was inviting her to things, but I do feel like at that point she should have been like, okay, I'm gonna end the interview here and we're just gonna hang out. And that would have been more professional and less creepy, but the fact that she chose to write about everything afterwards just seems so strange. And I get that it made her very famous and like whatever, but it's like, that's even worse, I guess. Another thing that I found out while reading like Goodreads reviews was that someone mentioned how the author was inspired by this GQ article or GQ profile that had been written about Chris Evans, which was like the similar situation of this reporter spending a lot of time with Chris Evans and then writing this like gushing profile. And I went and like read that article or skimmed through it, and like even the tone of that was like kind of creepy to me. I just don't understand this like celebrity mania, I guess, and this need to objectify this person in such a way, because like in the book, Honey is having these very real moments with Gabe at like the party and with his friends and like, you know, getting to know him and whatever else, but she is choosing to commodify that in some way and like put it in this article and share it in a way that is very like voyeuristic, I guess, and it just feels so icky to me. I don't know, something about this just like so many red flags and like just makes me ick. I know I mentioned this in the previous clip, but like I honestly just don't understand the chemistry between these characters and why they even like each other, and I just feel like the celebrity aspect of this just makes it so weird. Like she's just obsessed with the idea of him, but I feel like she doesn't really know him that well, and tried to paint this picture of him, and she was like so upset that he was lying about Jacinda, but like, I don't know, what entitlement do you have to him? Because we do find out by the end of the book that nothing actually happened between them. Like they kiss, they get into a steamy-ish situation, but it like ends as soon as it begins, and they get really awkward and then they leave. And that's about all that happens in that weekend. So I'm just like, what entitlement do you people have to each other? Like you had a one sort of hookup, not even, and nothing literally happened, but you're like madly in love with each other after like 3 days and pining after each other for 10 years. Like, please, come on. Another thing that really bothered me towards the end of the book was the fact that the characters just feel so young and sounded so young, even in the now chapters when they're both in like their 40s, I think. Like there's mention of Gabe being like in his 40s and like he's a much older guy now, and it just feels so strange to me because they still talk like they're in their 20s or something, or like early 30s, and like the life experience just doesn't feel like it's there. They didn't have that level of like regret, but also this knowing that like a lot of things will pass, and it just felt so strange. And on top of that, the only spicy scene that actually happens in this book is towards the end of the book in the now chapters when they're much older, and it's like they're teenagers when they get together. Like that whole scene gave me the major ick because I don't know, just something about it just felt so weird and awkward. And I don't know, man, like these people are much older, they've been married, and like they are experienced individuals. Like this should not be this weird. Everything about this just gave me the ick, and I just really wish I hadn't read it, but here we are. My camera ran out of battery, but anyways, we were on the topic of Funny You Should Ask and how much I hated it. Overall, I just feel like this just was not it for me. I don't know. I had really high hopes and I thought it was going to be something great, and it totally was not. And I think I finally understand what people mean when they say they don't like insta-lovey books, because this book felt like that to me. Like them falling for each other felt very insta-love for absolutely no reason. But the thing is, like, I have defended insta-love before in many cases in many other books because I feel like it's done so much better in the sense that like you can feel the chemistry come off the page for these characters, even though they're only meeting each other for like a short amount of time, or they're like instantly enamored with each other. But it's something beyond just like the lust or attractiveness aspect of the book. Like something about their characters just like vibes, and it's just like electricity when they meet. And like I am someone who like absolutely fell in love with my partner the moment I met him, so like I understand that feeling, but this book did not portray that in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know, man. I feel like this is one of those examples where I can like point to it and be like, yeah, this is a bad insta-love book, but there's so many other ones where I'm like, yes, you did such an amazing job. I know I mentioned 7 Days in June before as like a really great example of like a second chance romance, but that one's also a really great example of like the initial like insta-love, I guess you could say, because the characters meet and fall in love pretty quickly in like the past timeline of the book, and it's just so beautiful to see because something about their characters just meshes so beautifully. This is how I feel. It was painful to get through the end of that book, and I honestly just like put the audiobook on like even faster speed because I was like, I just want to get through this. Also, another thing that I really did not like is one of the aspects of like these celebrity stories is like the fame aspect and how that's going to affect people's lives, especially when it's like a romance between a regular person and a celebrity. And in the book, she already establishes that she becomes famous because of the article she writes about him. And there's this discussion of like, and there's this discussion at the end of the book about how like she's scared that that's all people are going to think of her. You know, they're only going to care about the fact that she wrote this article about him, or if they get together, that's the only thing that they're going to think about her, that she's like his girlfriend or whatever else. And like that is never resolved in the end. Like I think he just ends up convincing her that, you know, they should be together or whatever else, and that's how they get together in the end. Like I'm not even clearly remembering what happens in the end, but like it wasn't any sort of proper resolution. Like they don't solve anything, and it just made no sense to me. Like there was just such a non-breakup at the end, and then they just sort of slide over it and still end up together. and it was so weird. I feel like if you're gonna tackle the whole idea of fame, you should like be able to hit it in a better way. I think this book has sort of secured my feeling that I don't really love celebrity romance books. Like, they're just not the vibe for me. I don't understand the obsession with celebrity. I don't understand the need to objectify celebrities. So yeah, it just did not vibe with me at all. And here we are. With that rant over, I wanted to give you my final thoughts on each of the book, like, you know, my ratings and that kind of thing. So starting with The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I feel like this one, the more I think about it, I am less impressed with it, but that's not to say I think it's a completely terrible book. I just don't think it's even that great or even mediocre standard. It's like kind of on the lower end for me. It was funny. It was at times entertaining, but I think the fact that I didn't like the love interest really overshadowed a lot of things. I didn't really like the way the dynamic between the characters changed towards the second half end of the book. And overall, this just feels pretty forgettable as well. So I think overall, I would rate this one a 2.5 to 3 stars, more on the 2.5 side. I do think it's a good pastime, but I think by now my standards for romance books have gotten so much higher, so this definitely wasn't it. Next, we have Dating Dr. Dil by Nisha Sharma. This one, again, the more I think about it, the more happier I get. This was just such a wonderful surprise to me. And I've since looked at reviews of this and seen how people don't like the overtopness of it or the ridiculousness of it. And they don't like, you know, some of the dynamic between the main characters. I can totally understand that. I feel like some of it is just preference. Personally, for me, so much about this book worked so well for me. And it's definitely like one of the more entertaining, fun, and just heartwarming romance books I've read. So this is definitely like a 4.5 stars for me. Like, I had so much fun with it, and I think part of that is just like personal to my preference. I really appreciated so much about it. Hello friends, so this is editing Jananie from the future, and I wanted to jump in here to clear up some things and also address some more stuff that I saw in other reviews that I ended up searching up after filming this clip of the video. So basically, a lot of the reviews that I saw were really kind of upset about the whole Charlie thing, and I saw a lot of people putting like low reviews of this book because of the Charlie thing. I mean, there was other reasons as well, but the biggest thing I saw was the Charlie thing. And I don't know, for some reason, this kind of bothered me for a book like this because, well, one, the Charlie thing, I think, as you guys know, it went totally over my head while reading this book. And even when I realized it, it didn't really bother me all that much. And I saw a Goodreads review talk about this and explain it pretty well. But basically they were like, perhaps this is just like the older millennial in me, but I remember a time when people were embarrassed to use the actual names of genitalia and assigned euphemisms or nicknames that were more palatable. And I think that's like a thing that people still do to this day. For me personally, like, it didn't bother me that Prem was doing this because it was in his own personal monologue. So if he chose to use a euphemism for his dick, then like all the more power to him. I know other women in my life who refer to their vaginas with euphemisms as well, or nicknames. And, you know, I feel like it's a pretty normal thing. And I find the fact that people use this very, very, very small thing in this book that has so much else going for it to discredit the book as a whole, I don't know, that kind of really, really bothered me. And this is a book that manages to be a really entertaining romance while also tackling some real life issues. It talks about ingrained misogyny and colonialism in South Asian communities. It talks about the failure of Western medicine and healthcare to adequately study South Asian bodies, non-white bodies that are not the norm. And this is something that I, as a South Asian person, have personally experienced as someone living in North America. And on the note of this Charlie thing, I think a lot of people have been using this also to discredit Prem as a character. And let me be clear, I don't think Prem as a character is by any means perfect or the ideal love interest or anything like that. But by God, he is way better than some of the love interests that I even read in this video. He is by no means toxic, and he is, arrogant and a bit of a dumbass sometimes, but he also acts like a lot of really great general men I know in my life. And also he is someone in the book that we come to know as having a lot of repressed emotions and feelings. He's someone who's been through some intense grief. He's also come from a background where saying I love you is not really something that he was used to, and expressing emotion was not something he was very used to. And that's something that comes from generations of people not expressing their emotions, and that becoming the norm and something that is ingrained in you as a person. So yeah, he's kind of over the top. He makes a lot of mistakes. He doesn't say all the right things. Like, he is not perfect, but I don't think he is by any means the worst love interest that I've seen, especially when compared to some of your fave white romances. So this book has just so much going for it, and I feel like people have just reduced it to this one weird thing going on in the book, and so for that reason other people are choosing not to pick it up because of that thing. And I think that just does such a disservice to this story overall. And yeah, I know this is a popular book, but I think a lot of people have gone into it with a misguided interpretation and idea of what it's going to be. Another thing that also bothered me, which happens with every single freaking South Asian book I ever see out there, is that everyone and their mom wants to see their particular South Asian representation seen in a book. And I understand the desire, because we as South Asians are very often not represented in media, but I think the expectation to have such a diverse diaspora of people reduced to one type of South Asian experience is so ridiculous. South Asia is made up of so many different countries, languages, cultures, religions, and there is no way that that experience is going to be the same across the board. And there's no way that the aunties from, your experience are going to sound exactly like the aunties from another person's experience. And I think part of what makes this book so great is that part of it is sort of aspirational. Some of the characters in the books, especially some of the older characters, are more understanding than some of the aunties that we know in real life. So I think that for being what it is and the romance book that it is, and for the entertainment value that it offers, and just the idea of love that it brings, is just wonderful. And I loved it, and I will defend it, I feel, to the ends of the earth, because yeah, some of those reviews got me riled up, and this is me on my rant train again. Next, we have my favorite of this entire video, which is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is, of course, 5 stars. So amazing. Out of all the books on this list, you definitely need to be picking up this one. I do think that this one shouldn't be marketed just as a romance, because I do feel like a lot of other aspects come into play for this book. It talks a lot about family, about mental health, about so many other things, and I think it's so much stronger for that reason. But the romance is still a very strong part of it, a very integral part of it, and I loved it so much. I was definitely impressed with this author and everything she was able to do in this book. So if you have read any of Kennedy Ryan's other books, let me know which ones you would recommend so I can go pick up more. And then of course we have our final book of this video, Funny You Should Ask, which I've ranted about already, but if it wasn't obvious, this book was like total miss for me. Like, BookTok did me dirty with this one, and I think it would probably be a like 2-star rating for me, maybe even a 1.5, because honestly, like, I just really wasn't enjoying myself at all by the end of the book, and I wanted it to be over. So that's kind of where it's at. I think if you're really into the celebrity romance dynamic, then like by all means go for this book, but if you're not, I would just avoid it. So with all that said, I feel like TikTok has managed to show me a side of romance books that I absolutely love, and then another side that I absolutely do not love and kind of hate. I do think that this has helped me narrow down my taste in romance books a little bit better though. I know that I don't really love enemies to lovers or hate to love books all that much. I know that I don't like celebrity romances all that much, and I really don't like main characters or love interests with questionable morals. I feel like that's something that I appreciate and respect in regular fiction or in fantasy, sci-fi, like any other genre. But in romance, I feel like that is the one genre where I want my characters to be like moral and good people who I would want to have as a friend or as a love interest in real life. Like, if I couldn't see myself like appreciating you as a human in real life, then I probably won't like you as a character in a romance book. I can probably appreciate you in some other book, but not in a romance book. Because if I'm supposed to be invested in this relationship, I have to believe that both of you deserve this romance. I was discussing this with a friend the other day, and I feel like there's different types of people and how they read romance books. Some people tend to read romance books as like self-inserts, which is totally fine. Like, I've been there, I've done that, power to you. Some people read romance books as just like a voyeuristic, you know, fun thing to watch. Kind of like watching a romantic comedy, like you're not totally invested in the morals of the character as long as it's an enjoyable time. Again, totally fine to read it that way. I think am the type of romance reader who reads a romance book and thinks of the characters as if they were my friends, like my couple friends that I'm like totally invested in their story and I want to see them get engaged. Like that's how I feel about the characters in romance books. At least that's how I want to feel about them. So if I can't feel like they're my friends and I want the best for them and I want them to be happy and live happily ever after, if I can't feel that way about them, then I don't want it at all. Like that's just how I feel, you know? That's just how I feel. I'm not here to have like wish fulfillment or think about, you know, what my boyfriend could be doing instead. Like, no, I'm here to just see how you beautiful people fall in love. So I think for me, the two books that I really enjoyed, Dating Dr. Dil and Before I Let Go, were so stunning to me because the characters themselves were just wonderful people. And then with the other two books, the main characters were just awful on their own, and then they were even worse when they were together. So it just was not it for me. Anyways, those are my final thoughts on these books. I hope you enjoyed the journey that I went through while reading all of these. It was definitely a time. I did not expect this video to take over most of February for me, but here we are. Thank you all so much for watching. Definitely go check out my Instagram and TikTok in the description down below if you want to get regular updates on what I'm doing and what I'm reading, and I will see you guys in my next video. If you want to watch more videos like this one, challenge videos, then go check out the playlist of reading experiments that I have just over here. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you, and please remember that this story ain't over. Bye!